Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Just enjoying life. Finally got a technical snafu figured out.
Well, it
But
wasn't a snafu. It was me. It was the host who spent 6 years
ah,
working at Google and 2 years at a crypto exchange and can't figure out how to turn on a streaming service.
these things happen, man. It's all good.
Where are you in? You're in the U.S. now, right?
I'm back in the United States. I guess right. The last time you would have saw me would have been the summer before I left for before for Portugal. But
Yeah.
now we're back in the United States. Probably. You know what? That was funny, right? Because we moved. Well, one, I just wanted an adventure,
Yeah,
and
of
and
course.
it was easiest to go there because that's where she's from.
Oh, I
And
didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, oh, okay, right. So Portugal wasn't like random at all. She's a citizen of Portugal.
Ah,
So if when we get married, I will be a resident, and it'll be a lot
man, you
faster.
lucky dog. You're gonna have that second passport. Easy path to get out of here.
And it's a lot faster. A lot of people, there are ways to get into a country, but yeah, family reunification in the EU is the fastest way by far, and the cheapest,
Yeah.
fastest and cheapest. So yeah, that's how that goes. But we chose that because of that, and we actually thought the way we had things set up that we'd be fine because they recognize common law,
Hmm.
and we've been living together for over 5 years at this point, probably longer than that. Um, we thought we'd be okay, but the way they wanted to look on paper is basically that you did everything but get married, like a joint bank account, same bills in the same name, and we had none of that because we were just kind of living like
Right.
roommates on paper. But now that won't be the case, and
Got
it's
it.
just a lot faster to go the marriage route. So we actually left because, well, I had to leave. She didn't have to, but I had to
Oh, you
leave
had
when
to.
you. So yes, when you go to the EU, you get 90 days to begin with, just period. And then certain countries let you do something called a visa waiver extension,
Hmm.
which will allow you to stay for another 90. Here's the kicker. If you get that in your country, which I got, they tell you that you shouldn't go to any other country in the EU because they don't necessarily have to recognize it. They could, but they don't have to. And if they don't know what it is, they will send you back to the United States. So I just hung out in Portugal for the final 2 or so months, and then right around the end of February, beginning of March, everything kind of kicked off with COVID, and people complain about the lockdowns here, and that it is worth complaining about, sure, but we are a very different entity than Portugal, who, for example, I think it was 1971, they just ended their
Yeah, they
dictatorship.
had a dictator. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, under Salazar. So like,
Yeah.
there are people who are like our parents' age, who are like, this ain't shit, right?
Right. Right.
Living in Portugal, and so they were really, like, it was actually really interesting seeing how they responded to everything while we were there because the lockdowns were still going on, and then
Hmm.
we actually ended up getting the travel insurance that we had also had a clause in it if certain events happened, and
Hmm.
Corona fell into that, so we
Hmm.
got our flights paid for back home for free
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
everything. So we just came back, and we stayed with her sister for like 3 weeks down in Florida, and we came here and got settled. We've been here since our moving date was April 9th.
Cool.
So it's been a good time. I actually can't wait to go back. Like, it will be because I can go there now because they don't do family separation. I not have to go like get married like quickly, but it'd be no different than how I'm planning
20
on doing
minutes.
it anyway. Yeah, but we could go there now, but there's like no reason, no point. And they're actually about to go back into lockdown because look, everyone talks about the like how much sense do the lockdowns make. Here's what I know. My experience after being in a hospital, because I went to the hospital over there, I got real sick, and turns out
Shellfish?
it like no, when we were moving from Lisbon up to Porto, we stopped at a little town called Obidos.
Uh-huh.
It's really really great place. One of my profile pictures for a while was there, and I had some meat, and I got really bad. Like I just wasn't healing. And so eventually I went to the ER on my birthday, no less. And I went to the ER in a public hospital. The kind that most of the people in Portugal want to go to. Yeah, they're not they're not going to deal with any fluctuation, especially
Right.
if you need a bunch of people on respirators or whatever. So I like seeing that now compared to like the US. I get how countries respond. Like things like our gym was already shut down when we left. They were already doing queues into the grocery store where they had to check your temperature before you went in.
Yeah.
There wasn't like nothing was really going on in the final week that we left.
Sure.
We went out for dinner one night, and the only people that were out were like blonde hair, blue eyed Germans and shit. Like there wasn't like the Portuguese were like, yeah, we don't.
Arians.
This is it. So
Cool.
it was cool to see, but I get if I get too stir crazy and I really miss it and need it, but to go back now would be crazy.
For sure.
Like it's not, it's not like here where I can like walk up and down the street. Now I don't live in California either, so I don't know how
Oh,
bad it
for
is.
sure. For sure.
Are you still in California?
No, I left. So I think, Ed, we got about 130 people on. If you want to
Oh,
give,
cool. We can start watching.
yeah, if you want to give it a little retweet, maybe we get a couple hundred on here, start answering some questions. But
Oh
for the
yeah,
folks,
did you tag me in?
oh shit,
I'm sure it's on your. I'm sure it's on your.
It's on
profile.
mine. And Adam retweeted us, which gave us some new folks. Thanks for joining, everybody. So while we get Ed to plug what we got going on here, just give a little brief introduction, both my background and Ed's. And maybe I'll start by introducing Ed, and so he doesn't have to brag about himself, and then can kind of show how I got into the mix. Ed is former professional boxer. Obviously, has a military background. Smart dude. ENTJ Myers-Briggs, is that right?
Yeah, fully, man.
Right.
Which is
so it's interesting. We have two former professional athletes who are ENTJs. There's probably only 4 of us in the world, and 2 of them are on the same live stream, which means we take analytical approaches to understanding how the world works, and probably agree on a lot more things than we even realize. And so when I spent several years after finishing my professional baseball career working at a global macro hedge fund in Hong Kong, where I came to distrust the Federal Reserve, which led me to join Google because I thought the tech sector would do really well. So for the last 10 years or so, I've been a tech employee and just kind of like running and lifting weights in the morning, and realized after several years of doing that, Ed will dispute it, and Ed will say that my genetics are a big portion of it. Despite that, we don't know, but what we do know is that my genetics at 34 years old, where I am now, are worse than they were when I was 27 years old and fatter. And so, I found over the last 7 years or so that a lot of the traditional methods that I was taking to stay in shape, I'd go run 4 miles and then I go lift weights on an empty stomach. And, kind of this very similar things to what a NASM certified trainer or other certified trainers would have you do. Number one, it was very challenging, as you can imagine. And number two, I never really had tremendous abs or anything doing it. And I wasn't envious of that because I never thought that it was even a possibility for me. I carry more fat around my midsection than most people with equivalent body fats, as proven by recent DEXA scans. And so I just thought abs were never really in the mix for me. But it was in 2014 that I started running fewer miles faster. And then soon that led me to lifting weights less but heavier. And over multiple years, kind of found that I was able to lose a ton of fat without ever applying any sort of traditional dietary methods. People meet me without seeing my social content. They assume I eat chicken salads all the time. I don't. If you check my Twitter page or my Instagram page, I eat like 1.5 pounds of red meat every day, a couple pounds of meat every day. I do eat carbs. I'm not a full carnivore. And I've found that there's very significantly more efficient approaches to fat loss than what most people go about doing. For one, because it's harder to prove them in scientific studies. And we can get into that later. But, to bring this full circle, in late 2017, I thought to myself, man, this fitness thing is a lot easier for me than it was when I was in my mid 20s. My results are a lot better. I'm eating delicious food 100% of my meals of the day. And nobody even realizes this is possible. I want to get the word out. So, having no experience in social media, kind of like, post some things on Facebook, post some things on Instagram, tweet a little bit, talk to a wall. Didn't really go anywhere in 2018. And then by the end of 2018, I thought, I'm going to get serious about this because I really do think I have a good product to offer, and it's just not really going anywhere. So I know Ed did a good job in building his audience. It was probably close to around 100,000 at the time, and he put out some Twitter engagement guides. Engagement is the new cocaine, as well as a couple others, which I bought because I thought if I want to get the word out for my content, I should at least learn from someone who's been successful because I haven't been myself. And shortly after buying that book, I created this new account that you guys might be following. And, in 2019, had some really good progress, actually getting visibility. Met Ed in person several months later, went from 0 to maybe around 8,000 followers at the end of 2018, and, doubled that last year, applying a lot of the tenets that Mr. Latimore has shared graciously with the world. So, before we get on to fat loss and what Ed's working on right now, I'd just like to say thank you, Ed, for that. Very helpful.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense now. Okay. Um, yeah, that's really cool. Only because, man, I remember having a conversation with you, and I thought it was under a different handle.
It was. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not crazy, because I think I may have expressed it incorrectly when I met you. Because I was like, man, I thought, and because when you said the pro baseball thing, I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. We did have a
Yes.
conversation about that, and you told me if I ever come out your way that like you could show me around the park. I don't remember which one it was in particular, but I remember thinking, oh, what a cool invite, right? But
Yeah.
all right, it's all cleared up in my mind and everything. But yeah, thanks for really applying the stuff, man. I really put together. I tried to put together a great guide and took how I see the platform and taught it. And
Yeah.
I think people have been having some good success with the writing and using it to express themselves and
Sure.
gain followers.
So, and everybody is on here, got 232 strong, wanting to learn about fat loss. Ed, you're going through a weight cut right now. You retired from boxing after, was it after getting injured in sparring, or did you have
So the story, yeah, the official where I was like, I'm gonna chill out and just focus on other things is I was sparring. I was getting ready to come back because I took a year off. I lost, and then I fought for a draw in December 2016. That was my last fight to the draw, and I said I'm going to take the 2017 all of it off, finish up everything related to my degree, work on my online because I started to make a little money online, not much, but a little. And I said, let me see where I can go with this. So I took the time off. I mean, I kept in shape, but I wasn't like in the gym killing it. And then
yep,
at the beginning of 2018, I went hard and I went a little too hard and sparred somebody a little above where I was coming back, and I got injured. And I said,
Roy Jones
let's
Jr.? Was it Roy Jones
now,
Jr.?
now, wasn't Roy. Man, if Roy could hit like this guy did, man, Roy would have been.
For
He was.
real? This guy was like better than Roy Jones Jr.?
He wasn't better, but he was just a heavyweight.
Okay.
Just a heavyweight and a magnificent puncher. Probably of all guys that I've ever sparred or fought in real life, probably the hardest puncher for sure. And
Wow.
just a compact, strong guy. I mean, and you got to remember, I'm a small heavyweight. He naturally 250, 6'3", 250, man. It was the
Big
hard.
dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you get used to that kind of thing. But if you take a good shot, and it was on sparring. That's the crazy part. It's not like it was on fighting. You take a good shot. I ended up with a fracture in my eye. And I said, you know what,
Yeah.
chill out for a little while, go do some other stuff. And then I was like, oh, everything's starting to make sense again. I don't have a concussion. My balance is back. I feel good. I can do other stuff. I get the call from my coach and ask how good a shape I've been in. Well, he see me come out of the gym, I was in shape. And if I want to come up and work with Roy, I'll go and do I think it was like a total of 8 weeks, probably working with Roy. And I was like, I am still very proficient. like,
Yeah.
like to the point where we had actually discussed it, but I was like, who knows? And I thought if I should come back and do anything, but I was like, okay, if I come back and try and do this again, I will not do like I'll never fight heavyweight again. I shouldn't have really, I fought it as far as I could go
Yeah.
realistically. Maybe I get one more fight if I win the one I lost, but the guys were just going to be all bigger and heavier at that point, like way
Right.
bigger. I'm not that good. So coming back, I said I'd try it again at cruiser. I got nothing to lose this time, and on top of that, I won't be in school or in the military or anything like that. I don't have money, which all the things you
Well, all
don't.
these things make it
Right,
easier. If you're not, if
right.
you're training
I
and you're
said,
not broke, it's a lot easier.
yeah, so it's much easier. So I said, okay, let's see. I said I will do this if I can drop my body weight to a
Mhm.
certain number because I don't expect to be able to go all the way down to 200.
Yeah.
But if I got down to like 210 to 215 walking around,
Yeah.
then just during fight week,
Water cut.
on top of whatever I lose during the training camp, I just cut that in water and be good. So that's where I'm at right now. That's how we kind of linked up because I said I'm going to document this process and I'm
Yeah.
documenting what I'm doing on the side and some of the
Right.
and a lot of what I'm learning because I have spent a lot of time kind of educating myself. Because first I found this book and I was reading through it. I wish I could. I think that might be wrong. Um, but I got his book. He's a doctor on Twitter, and he talks about the fat loss thing. I'm just dropping things in case you remember or know who he is. And he was making a statement about the protein energy balance, and I said that sounds a lot like Alex's concept of
Sure.
this intuitive eating. That's how I put it in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I went back to your book. That's why I messaged you, and I said, "Yo, man, I'm reading this, and it sounds a lot like your concept, but
Mhm.
heavier on the science." And I
Yeah.
looked through and I go, this, but the different paths converge on what appears to be the same truth, which is
Oh yeah.
that if you consume a majority of your calories in protein, a few interesting things happen. As far as I understand it, and correct me if on the inaccuracies. One, you use more energy breaking that stuff apart because even though the calories are the same as they are in a carbohydrate, it takes more energy to break the bond, so you end up burning more energy than you would digesting it otherwise. Two, your body uh, stops using glucose and starts using fat because you're no longer consuming glucose, or your insulin doesn't spike as high as it should, so you start um, burning or oxidizing
Sure.
fat more than glucose, and that really helps. And the coolest thing that I've found so far trying this is that you just need to eat like you're not as hungry, right?
Right.
Uh, and
This
and
is
that's really
Ted something or other, I think,
yeah,
put it
Ted
out.
something.
Yeah, so what's interesting is, and I haven't bought his book, maybe I should buy it, but his book I think is like 100 pages long or something like that, and mine's like 12 pages because
Yeah,
I didn't.
he's got an illustration every page.
Right, and so my first book, 10 Easy Wins for Easier Fat Loss, is straight bro science. I mean, there's a moderate amount of I think there's 3 citations in there, but it's just applied trial and error to kind of figure out like what's the right amount of food to eat, and how should I eat in order to maximize my physique in a way that tastes good. And what I figured over years of experimentation, because I have no interest in like measuring my food or counting calories. I'm an adult. I
Man, you
want.
and me both.
Right. Nobody wants to do that. Right. And so, and obviously nobody wants to do it because it's like you have enough things to track. Why would you want to do that? So, as far as my approach to my diet, there were a couple rules that I took to start. Number one, everything's got to be delicious because if I had to choose between abs and delicious food, I would choose delicious food. It just so happens that I could get abs still eating delicious food in large quantities of it. So people don't realize that my diet and fat loss system was never created as a fat loss system at first. It was created as a gluttonous lifestyle justifier. And then I figured out ways to play Jenga with it, where I'm like, why don't I just do the thing that works better than the thing that doesn't work, because it's just as easy and just as hard. So if I'm willing to apply X amount of effort and I can apply that amount and get better results, then why don't I just do that? And so basically over multiple years, I was able to, basically just disregard what was supposed to work and what was not supposed to work, and just continued to kind of venture on things that did work. And, folks in the audience, if you have questions on this, feel free to chime in. Obviously happy to include all of you folks who are watching and listening. But, I think one thing that would be cool to get into is, talk about, how many pounds you have to lose, and what your approach has been to doing it, and what you found to be most unsustainable about that. And maybe ways that we can make it more
Oh
sustainable.
yeah, because
Right?
this is fun, and then part of the cool thing about documenting this is one, it's forcing me to learn a thing, because that's the main reason why I wanted to document it,
Mm-hmm.
is because I wanted to everything I try, I want to have kind of a justification, a reason. It's like I learned in chess.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much that you made a good or bad move. Can you explain why you made the move? And
Sure.
then from there, we can learn from it. If you just willy nilly did it, can't do anything with that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm documenting everything, and I want to see, what changes and what gets down. So far, the biggest surprise to me, one of my favorite snacks, and I think as far as snacks go, I'm great. I don't snack, but I do enjoy popcorn.
Haha.
And what I learned about popcorn is that it's very easy to eat high calories, or a lot of it, a lot
Is
of
it because of the
energy in
butter?
popcorn. Well, not just because of the butter, but because you start thinking. Well, first of all, it's not one of those things you eat it and you feel full. Like,
Yeah,
you
oh,
eat
yeah,
a
you gotta
lot
eat
of
like
popcorn
like a
before
full
you eat
bag.
a lot of
Yeah.
popcorn before you feel full. So much so you can, like, realistically. I mean, when I'm just sitting there, if I'm just watching a show, probably put away 1,000 calories of popcorn, and
Interesting.
that sounds crazy when you hear it and you think about popcorn and calories. But if you look at what a cup of popcorn works out to be and how much that is, there's nothing. So
Right.
it's like there's nothing. You go to the
Right.
movie, put it in perspective. What is normally sold at a movie, a large about that, without the butter, is probably 1,100 if
Yeah.
you finish it by yourself. So I said, okay, got to be aware of that.
Right.
And that was a weakness for a while. But once I caught it, then I said, okay, we'll only do this sometimes, and only on the days I'm at the gym killing it. Like,
Right.
and that to give myself a bigger window. And that's another thing I've discovered.
Yep.
I can pretty like you're not going to win the body game in the gym. I'm convinced of that. I was convinced of that from my experiences. And then when I started reading about how many calories you can reasonably burn in the gym before you start to break down or whatever, and this is the average person. We're not talking to guys that are in the, because I think I was talking to you about how many calories we worked out when I was at the height of my training. I couldn't keep weight on, and then we tried.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I used to here's how many calories I was burning. I used to leave practice and I would get a box of Ritz crackers with the four rows and eat them all.
Cookie Monster style.
I eat them all, and I could do it multiple days, and I wouldn't go above 215.
Yeah.
Didn't happen
Right.
because I'm burning so many calories. Yeah, I could do that. If I tried that today, I wouldn't even be able to finish them, first of all. But big deal. The main point of me bringing that up is I'm not exercising to that volume even close anymore. So I need a way to still create a deficit, but not kill myself in the gym. And the only way to do that is you got to control your portions. Well, the first step to controlling your portions is, well, make sure they fill you up. If
Sure.
you just eat a bunch of garbage, foods that are calorically dense, right, but not necessarily nutrient dense, you're going to be in really bad shape. So what I've done is I stay away from the popcorn. The pop, like, once I got the popcorn, it was funny, but because everything else is on point.
Yeah.
I don't eat. I mean, in the summer I'll go for an ice cream cone every now and then, but I mean, I'll probably eat 5 ice cream cones a year,
Right.
probably, right? But once I got that popcorn under control and realized that's what it was, that's where, then a pound starts coming off a
Sure.
week, a pound or so. So that was the big catcher. Also, and I don't know how you feel about this. I want to get your opinion. Fasting has made a really big difference, but not. I don't think of it as fasting so much as I'm just not hungry when I wake up.
Yeah.
And I don't eat until I'll get up, go to the gym. I'm good, have some coffee on the way. Probably don't get hungry until like 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And then I eat some meat.
Hmm.
And then whatever she makes for dinner, and it's all like. And the cool thing is, I don't have to think about dinner. I
Right.
know it's going to be nutrient dense food.
Right.
It's going to be some meat that was cooked and some vegetable, and the carbiest thing is going to be like rice or couscous, and I'm cool with that, is because I'm looking at it and I have a pretty good intuition about how many calories are in it, and even if I don't, I really am starting to pay more attention to how I feel, because you start feeling fuller sooner than you think. I'm starting to learn.
Right. Yes. So this is a big thing, and I'm about to blow your mind for like hunger management, because you're approaching hunger management in a sensible way as far as identifying the foods, the most calorically dense foods that you're eating that don't fill you up. Obviously, if you're eating a lot of calories and it's not making you full, you're going to keep eating a lot more
Yep.
calories. So like clearly, it's intelligent to adjust that. Now, what you said about fat loss happens through eating rather than training. I think that's true for most people, and I think that's definitely it depends how bad your starting point is. So if your diet is just horrendous, yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to make gains on a horrendous diet. I would actually challenge what you're saying, to where I think somebody with your genetics could actually get away with a lot more dietary mistakes if you adjusted how you trained. And I'm going to be specific about that, because, and one thing I told Dulab, if you follow him,
Yeah, yeah, I'll do that.
yeah, so I hopped on a FaceTime with him over the weekend, and I tried to explain my fitness framework in financial terms, because that he's finance background, it just makes a lot of sense. So most people's approach to fat loss, is very similar to financial advice that you would give to an average person who makes $50,000 a year, right? So the average financial advice that you'd give to somebody who makes $50,000 a year is stop buying lattes at Starbucks and work a couple extra hours overtime. And very clearly, you will create a savings surplus that you can see your bank account grow month over month, because you put in, an extra 3 hours a week working at time and a half rate for $25 an hour. That's an extra $110 gross times 4 weeks. So you got 440 gross, low tax rate. You're saving $30 a week on a coffee. So boom, you just made an extra $500 a month with those adjustments, and you save $6,000 by the end of the year. This is all true, and you can't disprove that that is true.
Right.
The problem with it is you're not going to hit any home runs doing it. You're not actually reconstructing the way that you spend and bring in money. And so if you really want to hit a home run, you need to reconstruct the way you spend money and the way you bring it in. Meaning you need to figure out how to get more passive income, which you've done well with your SEO and your blog. And so what people don't realize about training is a properly structured training plan is the physical equivalent of a stock portfolio that generates a significant amount of passive income. You need to create a metabolic engine that burns fat 24/7. And the problem with most people's training is it lacks the intensity necessary to develop a fat burning metabolism that burns fat 24/7. And so what they end up doing, people end up doing slow cardio, right? Because slow cardio does in fact burn calories, and those calories are burned in the quote unquote fat burning zone. So the calories that you burn during that cardio session are predominantly calories from fat. And within that session, you might be burning more calories. The problem is when you leave the gym, you're not burning significantly more calories the 3 hours after you left, the 6 hours after you left, the 12 hours after you left. All of the compensation that you're getting from that output is directly tied to the essentially hours that you're putting in on the treadmill. And what you want to do in finance, just like what you want to do in fitness, though people don't realize it yet, is you want to be able to put in a small amount of high impact, high value work. And if you put in a small amount of high value, high impact work, that's going to alter your metabolism so it burns more calories at rest. For example, you guys know from my before pictures, I was fat 6 years ago when I was 27 years old. I went and got a basal metabolic test, a resting metabolic rate test. I breathed through a tube so they could like scientifically analyze the chemicals coming out of my mouth to determine how many calories I was burning at rest. And at 178 pounds, I was burning 2,600 calories a day doing nothing, like if I was bedridden. And if you throw in like basic daily stuff with like a workout in, then you're up to 3,600 calories a day. And that's in like the 99.6 percentile. I mean, I looked at a chart. I tried to figure out how does that compare to the general population. And I found a plot of like 263 people, and mine was actually above everybody's. And even people who were way heavier than me, I was burning more calories. And so, but you can't, like, it's very hard to sell a program on that because the Apple Watch isn't going to, like people don't connect the calories that they burn 2 days after a workout to the workout that they did, on Sunday.
Yeah, I've been learning a lot about that too, and I hope you have some insight. I think it's what are they the epoch, the word they use for it, the post.
Yeah, I don't know what the term is, but that sounds about right.
Yeah, like you do all this activity now, and you don't have you do when you do the high intensity, your body doesn't have the fuel to do it immediately. It tries to get it, but it doesn't. So what it's going to do afterwards, kind of like it's a good analogy, like an engine that's cooling down. It's going to draw cool air, or rather, an engine heating up is probably better. It's going to pull in energy over time until it gets to where it should be,
right,
back equilibrium. So and then doing so, it burns calories. This is, in fact, wow, this is great. This is no different than like, wow, when you swim in cold water, you burn a lot more energy because your body's trying to constantly get back to equilibrium, and so it's giving off energy, but it's trying to stay warm. So when I go kill myself running, a set of sprints or whatever, my body's like, okay, we need to get back to base. We're all beat up and burned down, so while we're repairing, we're also using enough calories to kind of get back to where we were. Or rather, what we would have been had we done all of this activity the same amount of time. Because for whatever reason, our bodies think that when we sprint, what is this like? You do this. You were talking about the sprints, like you do a few hundred meters of sprints, and you stop and you start moving at a normal pace again. But your body's like, dude, you just revved us up, and now we need the energy over that time as if you had been doing this activity extended.
Yeah.
But you don't have.
Yeah, like I don't know the exact science behind it. Like I was, when I was 31, 32, so 3-4 years ago in the gym, I would just look at myself and be like, how is this even possible? Like how am I getting results like this? I don't even know. I don't know why these results are so much better than earlier in my life. It's sort of unbelievable given how that I was over 30 at the time. And so let me try to reverse engineer what the hell's going on. And so I know that we were talking a couple years ago about running miles, which I've actually stopped doing.
Oh man!
But I'm telling you,
I killed myself trying to do it, man. The closest I got pretty close. To 14 minutes. But it was scary on the treadmill running that fast.
So what I'm telling you though is, so there's two paths to fat loss. Everybody, listen up to this. This is like probably the most important thing that you guys might get from from this stream. And you can go slow and steady, burn a lot of calories in your session, which is what Ed's doing right now to lose a lot of weight. The other way to approach it is to instead of applying weight loss goals to yourself, is you can apply conditioning scores to yourself. So I guarantee, Ed, that if you can get to running 2 miles in 13 minutes, sounds hard. I know it sounds hard, but if you can get to running 2 miles in 13 minutes, you're going to be at your fighting weight, right? And what, like, if you just mentally apply yourself to running 2 miles in 13 minutes, I don't really care
You
how
know
much
what's
popcorn
cool
you're
about
eating.
this? Here's what's cool about this, and why I'm gonna go back to trying it. Before I didn't have a place to do that.
Yeah.
It was just a treadmill, and moving that fast on a treadmill for whatever freaks me out. But now I've got a really great straight track. I got this is the cool thing about living in the suburbs in America, man. This everywhere, all parks everywhere. But it's a great straightaway. It's like 3 miles ish, and I got the run keeper, can
Yeah.
set that and just take off and see how long it takes me to do 2 miles, and then I can screenshot that and match that with the other data I'm collecting, the information I'm catching, and the food I'm bringing in. So this is good. So if I can get back to like I was there, the fastest I ever did that, man. When I was in there, I did it in 13:10. I remember they timed us the 2 mile run.
In the military?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was walking around. Yeah, I mean you're right. I mean,
Crazy,
you're
huh? Crazy how I
in
knew
great
that.
shape.
Crazy how I knew that.
In fact, well, what I started doing in the earlier parts of my career, it just takes its toll, and then you can't do it all year round. Is my coach would have us do 2 laps around a standard track in under 3 minutes to
Yeah.
emulate a round,
Yeah.
rest for one, and then try to do it
Yeah.
again. And the most I could do in a row was 4.
Yeah.
That is a brutal workout, but
Right.
it
Well,
will.
what I'm telling you though is, yes, that's a brutal workout, but it's so much more of a growth mindset than caloric restriction. Because if you're singularly focused on, I'm going to be able to run, I'm going to run 5, right? If I'm going to beat where I was at when I was younger, because I might be getting older in age, but I know I can do it if I apply my mind to it. So if you get yourself to where you can run those half miles with the breaks in between, essentially intervals, they're long intervals. If you can get yourself to where you're doing 5 of those to beat your last score, what I think is going to happen, I think a couple of things are going to happen. Number one, I actually think you're going to be less hungry from doing this. This isn't true for everybody, but it is true for a lot of people, and it's true for me.
When you told me about the client that did that, I actually looked this up. This is a real thing. So it's not, I'm
Yeah,
saying this bro science approach
I'm
it's
telling
good.
you.
But
So what did you
yeah,
find?
I found that a typical response to sprinting is a less than hunger.
Yes. Okay, so that's great. Now we're
And they
validating.
think one of the reasons is because when you put your body under that kind of stress, the the hell are those called? Adrenaline, those
Endorphins or
things,
something. Yeah.
endorphins. Yeah, one of the beautiful side effects or benefits is that your appetite is stunted
This is what I'm
or
saying.
reduced. Yeah.
Exactly. And so these are the principles that I have in all of my fitness programs, my masterclass on sale today. You guys check it on my timeline, as well as my training program. And these are what I'm applying in the group fitness challenge that I'm running right now. Because the last thing that people want to do is be carefully counting their calories and weighing their food and feeling like they can't eat or they need to stop eating before they're full. And so the much easier way to approach this is to manipulate how you're training so that you're actually full at an earlier point, right? So you don't feel like you're dieting. I have a friend that I played high school baseball with, who started doing the training plan. You guys can find on my timeline that he messaged me about a week ago. He's like, "Man, I'm used to being hungry in the morning, but since starting this, I haven't been hungry until lunch. Is that okay?" And he weighs like 250 pounds, and he's trying to lose 20, 30, something like that. And I said, "Yeah, Will, that means you're dieting without trying." Right? Like that's the optimal way to succeed, is to do the thing that is normally hard for most people and it's no effort for you. So why would you not put yourself in a position where the hard thing becomes easy? Then it's not work. Then it's just living.
Yeah. Okay. So now you've got me excited about this. I mean, not that I wasn't excited, but if I follow what you're saying right now, I'm going to sum it up, make sure I'm tracking correctly. rather than try to save my way to fat loss, we're going to spend more calories.
Yes.
And in doing so, because of some wonderful tricks of nature and how we evolved, that's going to naturally make me want to consume less anyway. Now, since my diet and what I'm putting in my body already is on point, this is realistically going to be one of those things that I get an even a greater return on, because it's not
I
like I'm
think
eating
so.
garbage. It's
Right.
not like, my sleep is whack or anything. But taking care of this will probably push past, because really now I'm floating around. I went from when I started this 230, but I've never been able to get lower than like 225. I've
Yeah.
been struggling, and I think that's a big difference. My training is not nearly as anaerobic as it was
Yeah.
when I was fighting. When we were fighting, I mean, it was every day. It was not every day, but every other day at least.
Yeah. You don't need to do
Doing
it every day. You don't.
right. There's the next
Yeah.
question: how often should I do those kind of runs?
I would start at about 3 days a week and see how your body responds to that. You don't want to do it too much, because if you do it too much, my experience and the experience other people have is it can wear down your immune system. So if there's a balance point where probably at least twice a week and probably not more than 4 times a week is the amount that you should start with. And if you're starting to feel worn out through your training, then it's probably working too well. It probably means you're actually under eating to be able to sustain it. And so that requires some observation and adjustment along the way. But I think as a starting point, if you did it, if you because you're not going to just bang out 3 minute miles right now. But
Ugh.
if you started to do say, could you do 320? Could you do 5 at 320 with the
Yeah,
same rep
yeah.
intervals?
Like I remember when we were doing this relatively frequently, and the first one wasn't bad. The second one wasn't bad. That third one, that's where I was like, oh God, right? Are we
Yeah.
gonna get there or not? But what it sounds like, I mean, I'm thinking of at least for my running, and I want to get your input on the best way to lift now. What it sounds like I should be doing is what I should do is shift my running program to the 3 minute kind of around it. What are
Yes.
those? That's four. Is that 800s? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or
three
less.
minute eight
Yeah.
hundreds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
You could do
uh,
400s too. Yeah.
okay, yeah, and then I would chop that. Well, they used to have us do those too. In fact, I remember when I went to when we went to Carson, California, Fort Carson, California. We were like prepping for the altitude. One of the things
Yeah.
we did, we had to get around the track in under 110, I think.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's no joke.
so and they were like, okay, and we were adapting, but that was
Right.
like still good for you. So there's that, and then also the something related to sprints, I believe. Oh, the 2 mile, 2 miles and under. Try to get the 13 minutes on my 2 mile runs.
Yeah, and you don't need to. I mean, you don't need to do all of those, right? Because they're all kind of doing the same thing. Now, if it's boxing specific and you want to do, you want to mix in 3 minute periods because of how a boxing match is structured, I understand that that is sensible. I think from a fat loss standpoint, if you're simply trying to maximize fat loss, 60 seconds is probably appropriate. So if you want to do you could even do 300s. You do 300s in 60 seconds, maybe 65 seconds, given your present conditioning. And
Okay,
then, yeah,
so what you're saying is like outside of training specifically for a bout, we're just going to be working on fat loss.
yeah,
That the one lap around, but doing that in under a minute, for example, and that man, that's moving. But like,
yeah. We're not
uh,
going to be. I have no
yeah,
hopes
that's
for you
not.
doing it under a minute. Let's be serious here.
But yeah, okay. So I see kind of a goal now. I have you. I got you.
And it's a growth mindset because you're striving for it. And tomorrow you're like, okay, so I'm going to do that. So if you're gonna do the quarter miles, I could see you doing a quarter mile in 90 seconds and repeating that. So if you could do 90-second repeats for quarter miles times six, right, to start, and you could work your way down to where you were doing maybe 80-second repeats times six for quarter miles. you're going to be like in really good shape,
Okay.
and you just will. And so this is what a lot of people get wrong about cardio. Listen up, folks, and ask questions if you got them. So cardio should be measured the way a weightlifting is, right? So if you ask a bunch of gym bros, hey, what's your bench? They'll be able to tell you what their bench is. What's your squat? They'll be able to tell you what their perception of a squat is, which is probably not a full squat because pros don't squat. What's your deadlift? They'll be able to tell you what their ugly looking deadlift is. What's your mile time? Oh man, I don't run. I hate running. I was like, well, that's why you're fat, right? Because you hate running. And I'm not saying running is necessary for fat loss. Running in and of itself is not necessary for fat loss, but high intensity exercises that mimic the force production of running. So that would include swimming. That would include assault biking, where you got the bike where the pedals, but it also has pedals on the hands, whatever you want to call them on the hands. So you're using both your upper and lower body at the same time. Measure it. If you're measuring it and you're trying to beat your last score, you're going to progressively overload yourself into getting fit. And then we got a question. Isn't walking on the treadmill good? It depends what state you're in, basically. Like, Adam is Diesel, by the way. We want to throw that in. Isn't walking on the treadmill good? It depends who you are, right? Is walking on the treadmill better than doing nothing? Probably, right? You want to have some degree of physical activity. And this is probably where I disagree with a lot of the folks on Twitter who say just walk a lot. It's like, yes, walking is good if that is your only path to exercise. Walking is better than sitting on the couch. Walking will not give you a significant metabolic benefit. You're not forcing yourself to do anything uncomfortable. You're just not buying that latte and saving $6. That's exactly what you're doing. You're not buying you're not buying 1,000 shares of AT&T that's going to deliver you a dividend while you sleep. You're just not buying the coffee. And not buying the coffee is better than buying the coffee if you're broke, if that's all you can do. But if you have the capacity to do more, you're going to have better benefits doing more. Walking has helped me lose a lot of weight, no doubt, in the beginning, because what were you doing before walking, right? And so the response.
I was gonna say, like, this is a really great point. I see where you're going. That walking on the treadmill, like, for me, is not going to help. Like,
Right.
that it's just not going to make a difference. I'd have to be so restrictive everywhere else, and I still wouldn't really get what I'm trying to achieve. Like, at this point, the only way I'll get down is by using a lot more energy.
Right. And so, there are, and my training plan has multiple tiers, right? So if you're 60 pounds overweight, like, you're not going to be running 80-second repeats on the track, because if you do, your knees are going to give out, right? Because the joints just can't handle that compression over and over again. There you go. Yes, that's exactly right. So if you're 380, is walking good? Yes, because you're not going to run at 380, right? If you try to take a 380-pound body and have that guy run around a track, you're not going to be able to move the next day because your joints are going to be so sore. And you're down to 228. Good. That's where Ed is now, right? And so if you want to get from 228 to 208, that's really where this style of training comes into play. And this is also a big issue that people can't wrap their heads around it, because if you lost 150 pounds doing a program, that's a really, really good result from a program. The challenging thing is deciding, I'm not 380 pounds anymore. I'm 230 pounds anymore. So the thing that got me from 380 to 230, and I don't know how tall you are and what your goals are, so I'm just kind of hypothetically saying you're 6 feet tall or something like that. If you want to get from 228 to 200, at some point that you're gonna stall out on making that level of progress from simply walking, and there is going to need to be a higher work capacity that's mixed in. in order to maximize the benefits. And so, we also have a question on CrossFit. Is CrossFit going to replicate running benefits you described? Rick Seal 1. It will. The challenge with CrossFit is you're not doing the same workouts in sequence. So you don't actually know if you're getting better. And a key feature in intervals working is you're increasing your output and you're increasing your work capacity over time. And so the good thing about CrossFit is people find it to be fun. Somebody's telling you what to do, and people enjoy that aspect of training. The hard part is the goalpost is always moving. You don't know if you got better than last week because the workout's different today than it was last week. So as far as creating a workout, the most important aspect of a workout is that you do it. And so if it takes that kind of style of training for you to do interval training, and the other option is you just won't do it, well, then that would be preferred to not doing it. But if you can enjoyably, or if you can convince yourself that your ability to improve is very closely tied to your ability to get better at a specific running event, as if you were a track star, I think the results are going to be a little bit better. And I saw, Emmett, you want to get down to 200, ping me. We can talk about this. I think we can certainly get you there. But I think it's going to require that you make an adjustment similar to what I'm discussing with Ed. Can you get sufficient cardio from lifting? You can get good cardio from lifting. It depends how you define sufficient. So I think, and it also depends on your rest periods and how you're going about training. So my style is condition during conditioning and lift during lifting. So I take long rest periods in between my sets because I want to be able to build muscle. And I build muscle most easily by lifting heavy weights, and I need to have long rest periods if I'm gonna lift heavy weights. It just doesn't work with short rest periods. If you do, shorter rest periods, 60 seconds, 90 seconds rest period, and it's measured, so if you're getting better than last week, can you get sufficient cardio from that? Yeah, you can get sufficient cardio from that. Is that the most optimal way to get it? I think it's not. But again, if your alternative is simply not doing it, well, it's better to do it that way than to not do it. I think, the fully optimized program that I've developed includes it's 10 to 12 minutes of intense conditioning as both conditioning and a warm-up before I'm lifting, and then I lift. And what my friend Darwin Metzger mentioned, because he and I, and if you guys follow Darwin, his handle's Darwin Theory. If he does a lot of similar things to me, he eats a lot of animal fat, and does conditioning before he lifts, which my NASM certification would say don't do, but we do it anyway. And what he found from doing it is on the days that he does his conditioning before his lift rather than after, he burns like 230 more calories doing the exact same lift, which is, Ed, to your point, the afterburn effect or whatever. Like I don't do calorie trackers, so I just know it works. And he's trying to put like actual biometrics behind it. I think, can you get sufficient, cardio? Like you can, but the more you're willing to, take the same pride in your conditioning as you take in your 1 rep maxes, the easier it's going to be to not be fat, frankly, provided that you're healthy and it's like an intelligent thing to do, which is always case specific. And I can't tell, the 100 people who are on the stream that this is smart for them, because I don't know each individual, but this is just, what, generally speaking, this is what I've observed. Let me get to another one. He's tracking calories burned through an Apple Watch. I get really passionate about these things because I look at the fitness industry, and to me, it's just like, I went to a decent school. I went to Vanderbilt University, and, I've probably been more of a nerd than a jock most of my life. But, because I've thought a lot about why people take certain approaches, what approaches can gain distribution through the largest audience and the most amount of trainers. I just think the way that people approach these things is completely backwards. And probably within 10 years, it's going to become more obvious that the approach that I'm taking and other people are taking are the most efficient ways to actually go about fat loss. And it's enjoyable. It's a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. And there's a reason why I don't even feel like I'm on a challenging fitness plan. I mean, I know it's challenging, but like I have 0% burnout from what I'm doing. Like I eat a lot. I'm never hungry. I like lifting. I don't like my conditioning, but I take pride in my ability to get it better. So yeah, like the easier you can get yourself in that groove where you're taking pride in how heavy you can lift, and you're taking pride in how intensely you can do conditioning, the easier it's going to be to fall into, what Ed was talking about, where you're probably not going to be as hungry, especially if you're mixing in protein dominant real food with this system. Because what I've found is that calorie counting is for eating corporate food, right? If you're eating bags of popcorn, you need to count calories because that's the only way that you're going to stop, right? But if you're eating protein dominant real food, your body, if you're metabolically healthy, which would apply to people who are not, 50 plus pounds overweight, or, I'm not going to say that exactly, but if you're metabolically healthy and you're eating protein dominant real food, like there's a reason why you can't eat 50,000 calories in a day. Like your body does have some mechanism to tell you, hey, dude, that's enough. And I've just found that when you're conditioning intensely, working out intensely, and eating protein dominant real food, that's just the magic flywheel. And we will figure out why it works so well in 10 years. But the bros are ahead of the science, and the bros
Yeah,
works.
the pros are ahead of the science. The science is starting to catch up from me taking this kind of middle ground approach, which is okay. Two guys I see come to the same conclusion. Why does this work? And more importantly, thinking about my experience and when I was at the top shape, and now what I'm trying to do, and also when I cut weight to fight and to fight at 205 in MMA. Pretty much what I did was I didn't count calories. I just ate a bunch of. I cut out carbs completely, which was not a good idea. But I was eating so much protein and working out like at such a high intensity that it was impossible to like
Right.
to hold on to anything. But now what I'll be doing then, okay, so I've got the diet more or less on point, but it really sounds like where I'm lacking, being completely honest, is the intensity of my workouts.
That's
I take the intensity up and I should smash through it. In fact, if I start tomorrow, I wake up and I go hit the track off the road with this level of intensity three days a week, then yeah, by my birthday, which is a little over a month, I should be under two. Well, maybe not under 220. Right now, I'm like 227. I don't know how much weight is safe weight to lose, whatever. But I should have a significant change, one that I can notice and track, and just keep that up. So I think that'll be a really cool kind of follow up to
yeah.
see what happens inserting, because my dad is, even if I don't guard my way to eat anything out the house, which I never do, she cooks every night, and or we go to like a legit nice place to eat when they're open and everything, but I'm not putting any nonsense in my body whatsoever, and it sounds like I'll naturally set things up
I
even
think so.
better.
And I
So,
think within 2 weeks, you'll notice a difference. That's legitimately how fat, because you're not fat now. So you're
right,
in,
I was gonna say I'm
right,
sitting on a DEXA scan. I regularly come in like between like 14 point. Well, not really. I haven't been 14 a minute, but it's be like 15 and 16. We're right in that range.
right.
And so that's probably I will help me melt that last bit off and
And
get.
you're lean enough to where you'll be able to notice that difference in the mirror. Whereas if you're like 20% and you got down to 19, you probably wouldn't be able to tell that difference. But if you're 16%, you got down to 15, you're 15%, you got down to 14, each percent is so much more noticeable, because when you're at about 15%, that's when the abs start to become like kind of visible. And so each percent that you go down from 15, you'll be like, man, what the hell's going on? And I bet within 2 weeks, if you can get in 7 sessions in the next 2 weeks, I bet when you look in the mirror, you'll be like, damn, Alex, Alex might be onto something right there.
Oh yeah, no, dude, I know enough to know that having this podcast and hearing this, that's where the missing link is, the intensity.
Yeah.
Because it's not like I'm not going to the gym. It's not like I'm not watching what I eat. But I was sitting there thinking, reading. I was like, okay, this is the missing link. This is the thing I'm going to put the next heavy amount of research on. I was like, all right, I get why the protein works. I get
Right.
that, and I also get why, in theory, calorie restriction, caloric restriction works. But what I was having a lot of trouble working out was like, okay, I figured out what my basal metabolic rate was.
What was it?
It's a little over 2,000. It's like 2,036, 2,000.
That's crazy. Is you got 40 pounds on me, but mine's higher than yours.
Yeah, right. Okay, so this is where I was
Yeah.
going to go with this.
Yeah.
Is that when you look at what your TDEE supposed to be, total daily, energy expenditure, uh, mine is estimated based on the level of activity I believe I get is closer to 3 grand. I'm like, okay, how is this possible? I'm not gaining weight, but I'm not losing it either. Am I? Oh, so which number is correct that I should be eating towards? And it sounds like that gap is closed. You need that amount of energy, but your body, I guess, uses it differently when you're pushing yourself. This is all speculation. If there's
Sure.
experts in here who are like you're effing wrong, well, yeah, man. Well,
Tell us.
feel free to tell me because what I'm doing with the course of tracking this is you're gonna see me go from a kind of like a novice bro who just happened to compete at a high level to really get educated about this and see what works and really make some big strides, not just in terms of my knowledge, but how that knowledge is applied. Because I
Yeah.
think it'd be pointless to know all this and be, a blob. But on the flip side, if you walk around jacked, I mean, I guess you're in better shape if you walk around jacked, but don't know why you're jacked. But I like to have both to kind of be able to talk about it and know what I'm doing. So that's what I'm doing. And I think you put me on a path of knowledge.
And this is why, I see a lot of, pro athletes when they retire, they get away from the training that they did when they were athletes because they figure, oh, I just want to stay in shape. I don't need to compete for anything. I had a friend who played several years for the Chicago
And you
Bears.
just said exactly.
Right. And so they changed their programming. So you take a guy who used to be able to squat 315 for reps and used to be able to run 630 miles, and you put him on this like soul cycle plan, and it's like, well, yeah, your body's just gonna that's not you. Like that's what somebody in the general population does when they're just getting started and they need like a low entry point workout to to like enjoy themselves. But if you're an ex-professional athlete and you can maintain the intensity of your training, but perhaps space it, shorter sessions, fewer and further between as you get older, maybe like control the eccentric movements so you're not compressing your joints as much, your metabolism is almost certainly going to stay near where it was when you were playing. It's just that people don't, because the fitness industry hasn't quite caught on to the value of this intensity, people don't realize that they're actually giving up the thing that kept them in shape when they played, when they stopped playing. So they don't actually know why they're getting fat. They just assume, oh, because I'm not working out 4 hours a day and I'm getting older. Obviously, my metabolism is slow. It's like, okay, well, those two things are true, but the biggest thing is the intensity that you're lacking.
Right, because it's not. Yeah, man, this is telling you, man, this is a light bulb moment I'm experiencing. Because right, it's not like it's not like I stopped working out or studying. I mean, fine, but I remember saying the first day I sparred with Roy, I left and I was so hungry. But after that, it was my body adjusted, and we were like, all right, this is we're back in action, buddy.
Right.
Let's stay here, and
Yeah.
it was great. And the picture I took um, on my IG when I'm in Mexico, that was like in the middle of the training, and I'm not like eating any different, but
Right.
like I have like a visible ab line and everything is
Right.
moving. Like, and I'm
Right.
sure it's because I'm dead smacking of intense working out, and it wasn't
Right.
even crazy. Like in fact, I was doing nothing else the other days because that's what I was doing,
Right.
and then
Right. Right.
be sharp and ready for that. And it's not like it was crazy. I think we the most we did, we were doing, yeah, it was an 8 round fight. That's what we were
Yeah.
preparing for. So
Right.
like, so this is really cool. I think this was a good educational session. I know what I have to do now to make the big change.
Yeah.
To
I think maybe before we cut, we can take one more question. Why do they cause weight gain? Glycemic index. So I used to pay close attention to the glycemic index. As I've gotten older, I've kind of gone away from that and primarily focused on, is the food real or not? Rice and sourdough bread which you asked about earlier, have high glycemic indexes. I've actually found that I can digest them just fine. And because I look at carbs like debt, right? Where most people will tell you that as a consumer, you should not have debt, right? Debt's expensive, you don't want it. And that's true for most people. But if you're using your carbs appropriately, like you're using your carbs so that you can train harder, you're using your debt so that you can earn more money, then that's a very different application of both the carbs and the debt than what the base case application is, which is you're just taking it in and you have no real use for it. And so I think carbs cause weight gain for a couple of reasons. Like if you want to get more scientific, the carbs turn to glucose, and if you don't burn the glucose, it's much more easy for that glucose to turn to fat. Secondly, and this is where I disagree with the calorie counter guys, carbs are, a calorie of carb is like a calorie of protein in that it's a unit of energy. But the difference between the two is when you consume a gram of carbs, many people, myself included, can eat more other things. So if you were to tell me, Alex, you're going to eat a 32-ounce steak tonight, and I would say, all right, well, the easiest way for me to eat a 32-ounce steak tonight is to have a little bit of carbs with it because it makes me hungrier. Whereas if I only ate a 32-ounce steak, it'd be really, really hard for me to finish it. It would still be hard with carbs, but say 20-ounce steak, so it's more realistic. If I were to eat a 20-ounce steak with no carbs, that would be like a lot of food. But if I ate a 20-ounce steak with carbs, I could do it more manageably. And so this is what Ed was talking about earlier, like kind of with the popcorn, is like if you are able to eat foods that don't make you hungrier, you will naturally eat less. The more foods you eat that make you even hungrier, the more food you'll naturally eat. So you'll find yourself consuming like way too much. So, if you're on a strict calorie counting plan, you can include carbs, but then the flip side is you might end up being hungry at the end. Whereas what I've found is I don't want to count my calories. So I've just found that if I restrict my carbs to like 7 servings of grains a day, which is actually a reasonable amount, it's close to 200 grams a day around, and I'm flexible with it, but around 200 grams a day. And I approximate it with servings, not grams. I'm not counting the grams. That allows me to eat approximately the right amount of food where I can lose weight. And I'm going to take this one last one because we're going to disagree with this. I'm going to throw something out there that's going to totally infuriate Ed.
I don't drink. So
no, but it's not going to be about drinking. It's not going to be about drinking. And so what type of alcohol is least detrimental on a high protein diet? Weed. Weed is the type of alcohol that's the least detrimental on a high protein diet. And so I'm public about my I would say appreciation for the plant because of what it's done for me and my physique, where Ed's at the first percentile of trait neuroticism. He worries about nothing, apparently.
To the point where, like, it's probably a good thing I ended up with a conscience because I could easily be a killer. Like, man, man, I'm telling you, like, I don't. Yeah, first percentile, actually 0th percentile neuroticism.
0th percentile, right? So like I'm 50th percentile, meaning I worry about things at about the average amount of the general population, which is more than most elite athletes, to be frank. Also higher than most men. And so my parents worry about things that I think are stupid, and I inherited some of that. So it's just something that I live with. And so what that means is if I'm in a high stress job or high stress athletic environment, I'm going to have more anxiety than the next guy. And that anxiety is going to prevent me from sleeping and getting restful sleep. And so what I did in my early 20s and mid 20s is, like a lot of people, I would just use alcohol to kind of chill myself out after work. And so I could pass out. Right. And that ended up resulting in me consuming, more alcohol than, I probably should have, but it was like, I just needed to do it to chill out. And once I switched from consuming, alcohol as a sedative to consuming weed as a sedative, my sleep started getting deeper. I was cognitively crisper. I could perform a lot better at work. And I don't think that the calories in the alcohol are the worst part about alcohol. I think it's the ethanol in the alcohol. So despite the fact that I would say if you're going to drink alcohol, choose a vodka soda or something like that. It's better to just not have it. I just really think that alcohol throws off, your hormonal balance, bro science, not standard science. And I really think that fat loss is more hormonal for the reasons that we discussed on the stream than it is a strict calories in, calories out metric, the way you would assess fuel consumption for a train. And I really think, and I don't have studies to go off of this, just kind of personal experience and watching other people, I really think that alcohol throws off your hormonal balance, making fat loss a lot more challenging. Is that good? Should we drop that mic on this?
No, that's excellent. I mean, I would have, yeah. I mean, even the traditional kind of advice for not drinking alcohol while trying to cut fat is different, but reaches the same general conclusion. It's no good for it.
Right.
They focus more on the fact that your body, I guess, deals with the alcohol before it deals with everything else, and you don't get anything for those calories, but it stops the burning of all the other calories. So it's just a big loss all around. So if you're serious about, I mean, the biggest benefit of a high protein, or rather the reason why most people have a high protein diet, is they're trying to lose fat. And if you go and drink alcohol, it's kind of like putting the accelerator on while your foot's on the gas, or on the brake. I mean, like, what's the point?
Right.
Something's got to give.
Right. Right. Well, this was fun, Ed.
Yeah, this was fun and highly educational, and I've got an actionable step because I'm really curious to see what happens, because I'm going to wake up tomorrow. My workout tomorrow morning, I'm heading straight up to the track, and I'm going to start that work and start shifting out with that. I really want to see what happens, and I think it'll be a cool follow up, because that's the biggest change I'll make is doing sprints to those that interval set more.
Yeah.
And doing that consistently now, 3 days a week, and see what happens. I have a pretty low bar right now because I know where I've been stuck. But I feel like if this is even half as effective based on everything I know, I think I'm going to blow past that. So I have what I think, I have what I feel.
Yeah, so let's follow this up in like 4. I said you're going to see results in 2 weeks. Let's give a little bit of a buffer. We'll follow this up in like 4 weeks. And we'll let everybody know if I'm full of shit or I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Dude, I'm gonna do my best to make you shine, but I'm gonna.
All right, buddy. And then we'll cover this real quick before we bounce. Interval count distance. I like a minute. Just try about a minute, and you can go 30 seconds, you can go 60 seconds, you can go 75 seconds. The biggest thing is you want to keep it consistent. So you can track your progress. And so that's what Ed's going to be doing is, whether he's picking 3-minute intervals or quarter-mile intervals, something consistent so he can track his progress week over week. And eventually you can switch it up. But you want to be able to track your progress week over week so that you have a goal, a target in mind, and you just get better at that. Fat loss is that easy. You guys will try it. You'll see. All right, guys. Peace out.